Welcome back to the Michael Eric Dyson Show. Imagine a combination of neo-soul, classic soul, poetry, thought-provoking lyrics, and I'm going to have to say the blues too, and live instrumentation. When you pull that dynamic mix together, you get my next guest, Abyss Graham, who calls himself an urban folk artist. He's a poet, a singer, a songwriter, and a musician based now in Atlanta, Georgia. Abyss Graham, welcome to the Michael Eric Dyson Show.
Thank you for having me, Professor Dyson. It's an honor to be here.
Mr. Graham, it's great to have you as well. We want to find out more about you, where you grew up and how you got into performing. But for those not familiar with you and they want to see if you can live up to those kudos, I want you to prove right now just what a brilliant artist you are to the folk out there listening. Perform a little bit for us before we talk about where you come from.
Okay, this first piece I'm going to do is called Acid Gospel. Sometimes the truth burns. Beware of the Nephilim, prophecy in motion. Poetry too deep, y'all, we gotta talk in the ocean. The secrets of heaven have been shared with the men of this world, and we mask it as technology, attacking their prey psychologically. I am America's hostage socially, from my physical to the ghost of me. Same cat that'll give a toast to me, probably pull a toast on me. Roast me with my homies, leaving me slumped at the breakfast at Shoney's. All for the money, but ain't nothing funny, cause I'm walking with my pallbearers, cause real cats are scarce, and nothing compares to love, so they attack with no love. And this is what it sounds like when the doves cry, but love don't lie. We just keep our heads to the sky, try not to fry like fake deacons. My life has been the beacon, my physical still reeking, spiritually seeking off the deep end. You can always depend on regrouping from sin. We are approaching Omega, the church say amen, and a hallelujah for those who have eluded you, cause ain't no telling what this administration is doing to you. So hit them knees where the hell is raised, give them praise. Jesus, Allah, Yah, Jah, Jehovah, Celestia, Rastafari, Yoruba, Yahweh, Buddha, or just plain old God. Before this body is placed aside, feel thine heart. This is real rhyme art, lyrical Ginzu. My tongue sword is stay sharp. I'm acid gospel, that means my message is a little strong for church, but it's just right for these streets. What do you think I used to be? In them same seats, still feeling the flames heat. God told me I had a flock of sheep, and since then, I ain't been getting much sleep. He named me after my faith, and we all know what abyss means, and if you don't, it stands for a bright young soul searching. Acid gospel.
We might as well end the show right now. That brother put it down so deep and so profoundly. That's Abyss Graham, redefining the chaos and the gulf, the lacuna, the wide stretches between places, the spaces that fill in. That abyss is brightly shining and radiating such joy. Thank you for that gift there. Now, we see, we hear, we know and understand that you're from a great city. I wonder what city you're from, and can you tell us about your upbringing in that remarkable, amazing city?
Yes, I'm from the city of Motors, a.k.a. Detroit, Michigan. East Side,
what?
to be exact.
Ya heard? West Side over here.
Already. We got it covered.
Well, let's shout out WDET, which is carrying us right now. So tell us about Detroit and what it was like to grow up there.
Well, Detroit, I mean, for me, I was in a single-parent home, but, you know, it wasn't a lot of money around, but it was a whole lot of love. And the music itself, like Motown was just rich. You know, I grew up like East Side, McClellan and Mac, and it was, you know, some days it looked dark. If you didn't have the love, you was in a lost state. But, you know, right. I had, like, my mother around me, my grandmother, my sisters. You know, I was, like, the only male. So I was an alpha male in a whole female-populated family here. So, you know, we were heavily populated with females. But, you know, they spoiled me. But in the same essence, I became a lion from Detroit, basically. But I was a winner.
We hear your I am lion, hear me roar. You are doing your thing. One of the great lions from Detroit. You call yourself an urban folk artist. You play the guitar, you sing, but you started out with poetry, and we heard some of those cadences that are so remarkable here today. Why poetry, and what's your creative process when you're writing your poems?
Poetry is because basically I was able to put sugar in the medicine, because I started off with the comedians, kind of riding around with the comedians and doing like touring with these guys, but I was the only poet. But it's hard for people to take you serious after you actually spit a serious poem, and then you be like, hey, now listen to my comedy. So I was able to interject the comedy within the poetry. You know, it's like adding sugar with the medicine. Nobody likes to be preached to, but if you can really just find a creative way to come get it. I mean, I believe the poetry itself is what hip-hop was based on. It's just conscious hip-hop. So I was blessed to have a genre called acid gospel. Sometimes the truth burns, which is another way of saying conscious hip-hop, or basically I'm bringing you the good news.
I love that term, acid gospel. Is that your term?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because as you say, sometimes the truth burns, and you're not talking about necessarily religious truth unless the revelation of insight and the meaningfulness of truth is the gospel. But you're talking from a broad universal perspective, I assume.
Yes, sir. And basically, you know, growing up where you were actually we were held back for a number of reasons, but you can choose to be held back or you can choose to win. So I choose to win. So this is why we're going to circumference. It's a slow burn, but I'd rather do this than sell my soul.
You served in the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps, and you ended up in Jacksonville, Florida. And while you were there, you were offered the opportunity to open for an album release party for an artist. Some of y'all may have heard of her. Her name is, Erykah Badu,
yes.
for her first album, Baduism. So what was the light bulb moment for you after that performance?
Well, I was in Jacksonville, and when they offered for me to come here, you know, it was like, you know, I had been to just a couple of open mics, and, you know, the bug had bit me, and I was like, why are people reading other people's work? You know, I can understand homage, but, you know, you have something to say as well. So I came back the next week, I spit my piece, and they offered me to come and open up for the Baduism, and this was my first piece. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, this thing could grow, but I got to go ahead and get to where it's actually popping at somewhere. And, you know, I was, like I said, it was a blessing. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and it popped off for me. And it was, that was, you know, it's just God really moving me out of there, you know, when I didn't know for myself.
Do you know what you performed that night?
I performed this piece called The Love Stock Market. It was like something, man, I couldn't even tell you what it is, what the poem is. I didn't memorize it. Like, I had it for some years, but I was like, to me, compared to what I'm doing now, I was really whack in my. I thought I was. But
you must
whack.
have been great because you opened it up for Erykah Badu, so you couldn't have been that whack.
Exactly, and the thing about it is, I guess after I grew up with the time, so you can't be afraid of humble beginnings. But it was like one of those things where it's like, oh my God, they like that. Oh my God, they ought to hear me now, because, you know, it's a thought process that goes into it now. So it's, you know, you go through your pain and your struggle and everything, and it makes for great writing.
Well, speaking about pain and great writing, and if you're just joining us, we're talking with urban folk artist Abyss Graham, my homeboy from Detroit. But you moved to Atlanta in 1997. You were doing poetry. You were also moving in comedy circles with well-known African-American comics like Bruce, Earthquake, yes, and Joe Torre. So how did traveling and watching comics help with your stage performance? Were there some lessons you derived from their comedic timing, their cadences, and how they waited and didn't step on their own lines and, you know, mess up their own jokes? Did you learn anything about that for your performances?
Yes, I did. And one of the things that I learned is Joe Torre gave me a great piece of information. He said, never give the people what they can give back to you, or you will never be respected. And I took that and magnified it 100 times that. So I made sure that, you know, I went into like 6 months of celibacy, just 9 months, actually. It was 9 months of celibacy, just cut all the outsiders out. And I got to know my craft. And when I came out of it, a lot of it progressed. I mean, even the writing, just, you know, watching these guys and timing and just taking that back and just really like boiling it down, breaking it down like an alchemy. And it's almost like, wow, you know, this is what I need to do, because no poets are coming this way. So I need to go ahead and look at this from another perspective and play a different lane. And that's how I came back.
And when he says, don't give them something they can give back to you, what does that mean? Does that mean that that you have to raise your craft and have a standard of excellence that they may not be able to achieve, so that therefore they will be hungry for more?
Exactly, because a lot of people will look at it from the outside and figure like, yeah, I can do that. But a lot of times you don't know what this person had to go through in order to obtain the things that they are trying to go through. Like I lost my mother. This is really what got me into poetry. And when I lost my mother, a lot of it it was spewing over. I couldn't afford a shrink, so I had to really prescribe to myself, like, what do you write from this pain? What comes from this? And emerged the artist that I never knew that was there, but I had a feeling it was, but it didn't come to pass until after she was celestially awaiting.
Well, you performed also on Russell Simmons' Def Poetry Jam, which aired on HBO for 6 seasons. Starting in 2002, the show put many poets in the national spotlight. I got to have self-confession here. I was on that Poetry Jam.
I was there when you were
there. You were there, my brother. Amateur
Yes,
like
sir.
me was even there. But you had a very interesting personal moment involving rapper, actor Mos Def while you were there. Can you give us that behind-the-scenes story of you and Mos?
Yes, I was actually checking into the Hotel Edison, and, this is my first time to New York, so I'm waiting on the elevator. I'm excited. I'm looking at a lot of the celebrities going around, and when my elevator door opened, it was Russell Simmons and Mos Def, and I was like, oh, wow. These are like two of the cats I look up to in the game. So as I get on the elevator, Mos Def is reciting my poem. And I'm like, man, this thing is real. I was like, yeah. I was so honored. I mean, I ain't want to have a groupie moment or nothing, but I could have passed out then.
What, he was spitting
like,
your poem back to you?
Yeah, he was like, my life, it ain't sunshine. I was like, oh my God, they looked at the tape. They actually looked at the tape, So it was pretty cool.
Coming to the stage. My man, Mos Def, speech is my hammer, bang the world into shape, now let it fall. Mos is one of the great ones out there, and I'm sure that was a tremendous moment. Your last project was Acid Gospel. I love that title. And it was in 2004, and that was the title piece we heard in the beginning, of course, of the interview and that I asked you about. But Acid Gospel also had a piece called If These Blocks Could Talk. Can you go ahead and let us hear If These Blocks Could Talk? We'd love to hear your rendition of this poignant piece of music.
Yes, sir. This was inspired by these East Side Detroit blocks. And if these blocks could talk, what would they tell you? And if these blocks could talk, what would they tell you? Poverty is standard, so little black boys are lured to get in a hustle with arm and hammer, packing hammers under their arms, developing a hustler's charm. From Detroit to Atlanta, they've got bugs in the hood. Watch out for their antennas. You never know who the police is. They playing both sides on some Peter Rose, like we don't know this is happening. Don't underestimate us. We're so much more than the NBA and trafficking and puff passing. And why y'all harassing us? If these blocks could talk, what would they tell you? If these blocks could talk, what would they tell you? God is watching, the devil was stalking, walking down them same blocks. No names to be given, blessed are the living. Rest in peace to those that have passed on. Shame on you if you got your blast on. And if it's black on black, we won't last long. I got one question. How long? How long? Change gon' come, whether you like it or not. Freedom, it ain't free, it might cost me a knot. Said the enemy is salty, starting to feel like Lot. The same thing got Biggie and Tupac shot. We supposed to move mountains, but we stuck on the rocks. Got some big shoes to fill, I double up on my socks. We on a shoestring budget and it's tied up in knots. We got a black president, yeah, his name is Barack. But if my freedom got the cost, you can give me a box. I'd rather walk it out with God, just call me Enoch. If these blocks could talk, they'd here to tell you that we tired of dying over senseless violence. Killing the crop, y'all.
That's Abyss Graham. He can sing it, he can spit it, he can freestyle it, he can do the lovely cadence, and he can do the staccato. That's why he's such a gifted artist indeed. Your current project is Legacy. How was that project born?
It's slowly but surely making it. You know, I actually set out on that embarkment probably about 2 years ago, but it's been one of these things where a lot of things just keep happening. So I've been reading a lot more, so it's opening up my work a lot more. So that's coming along, and you know, I've been motivational speaking to a lot of the youth, our brothers here, and the lion cubs. Some of us don't have lions in the home, so we wind up being fathers by proxy, you know, outside of this. So it's kind of, we're trying to raise up a nation. That's all. We got to be responsible.
Well, absolutely. You're very active in community service. You recently lent your craft to HIV/AIDS awareness and the Kaiser Family Foundation's Greater Than AIDS campaign. And you also, you know, do your music. So you do your philanthropy, you do your social activism, and you do this music. A piece of off of your current project, Legacy, is called So Amazing. Tell us about this piece very briefly, and then let us hear it.
Basically, it was just something I had to show the guys. Like, a lot of times they don't respect positivity because they say we have a whack cadence and we don't flow right with it. So it's kind of like on the hip-hop tip, but, you know, it's definitely getting the message across. So it's one of those things straight to the point. All right?
Yes, sir. Go on and spit it.
I'm a blade of grass in the field of dreams. I'm a diamond amidst acronius, you know what I mean. They said the block too hot cause the world's still cold. They call it a market cause their souls being sold. Lack of academics, the level is epidemic. The treatment is symptomatic. We dealing with bastards, addicts with nothing up in they attic. The recollection is tragic, so it's hard to imagine. I'm a beautiful mess. It feels like I'm in a pageant. They tote heavy metal. I pray I'm not a magnet. Black man thinking, please call off your dragnet. I spit it narcotic in control of my substances. Don't say I'm doing lines, I'm just saying sentences. Swine flu penmanship, sick is what with my gift. Hard to hold me down cause I came to uplift, uplift, uplift. He's so amazing. He's so amazing. So yeah, that's just a piece of that.
He is amazing. This is the amazing Detroit bred and reared Abyss Graham. Thanks to my guest, Abyss Graham, an urban folk artist based in Atlanta, Georgia, but hailing from Detroit, Michigan. I want to thank him for joining us on the Michael Eric Dyson Show, and let's just listen to his dulcet tones as we close out. That's it for today. The Michael Eric Dyson Show is a production of WEAA on the campus of Morgan State University with funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I'm your host, Michael Eric Dyson. Until tomorrow, be good to yourself.